Welcome to the political segment of the weekend show where we will be discussing the probable scrapping of the junior and senior secondary school structure, replacing it with a new 12-year uninterrupted basic education system. We would also like to note that hours after this news was released, the Federal Ministry of Education refuted claims of this and said it was only a proposal for discussion, not an immediate policy change. So that said, joining me to discuss this, we have Yusuf Abubakar Yusuf, who is a former distinguished senator, Taraba Central District. Good morning, sir.
Good
and
morning.
Thank you for joining us
Thank
on the
you
show
very
today.
much.
We also have Ikenga Prince Eziomo, who is a political philosopher and public affairs analyst. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
And
Good
it's
morning,
ni-
Nigerians.
Yes, it's nice to have you here on the show.
Thank you.
All right, so I'll start with you, sir. When you saw this news, before the claims were refuted, what were your initial thoughts?
Well, thank you very much. My thoughts are basically we are at it again. Because for me, it doesn't matter whether it is 6334 or whether it's 934, whether it is 124. Who funds it? Who has responsibility for it? And then how are we going to get 20 million out of school children to school? I think my reaction is, it is not the system that is the problem. Whichever system, let the system work. My own experience is that the system does not seem to be working. When we have the 6334, who has responsibility for 6, who has responsibility for 3, who has a 3, who has responsibility. So the whole thing, has to be, restructured in such a way that we identify the responsibility within our federal structure. Federal government, state government, and local government. Because funding and then, managing these things, what is fundamental to me. So for me, whichever system you adopt, so long as we'll have the same system of managing our education, it won't work.
Okay, Mr. Kinga, how about you? What were your thoughts when you saw this news?
Well, as the distinguished senator has said, one of the problems with Nigeria is trying to import something they don't have a holistic understanding of. It's just like the kind of democracy we are practicing. It was imported from America without putting into consideration our cultural environment and our disposition to politics in this part of the world. Now, it is obvious our kind of political system is not working. Now, the 12-4 system of education is what they want to import from America. And I am certain, if we don't talk, they will simply import the building, the exterior, which is the 12-4 system, without even going into the interior, just as most distinguished senator has said. What we need in Nigeria is a kind of education that is working. What we have now is not working, actually. But it's not just about changing the exterior structure of the education. Just changing from 6334 to 12. After all, it's still the same number of years. But what are they actually doing? It pains me that there are a lot of out-of-school children in Nigeria, millions of them. If you go to the north, there are too many. Even in the south, you go and see the kind of environment where young people go to school. These are what I feel the Minister of Education should focus on. And again, what are they actually teaching those children? In my school alumni platforms, we usually joke to ourselves and ask ourselves, all those lizards, monkeys, butterflies we drew in those days and labeled, of what use are those things for us now? Who are actually making use of those drawings? Of what benefit were those things to us now? And today, you see that primary school children are still drawing lizards and butterflies, labeling them, instead of discussing AI, instead of introducing young children to modern, just like if you come to AIT of 15 years ago is not AIT of today, interiorly. But your building, I think, is still the old building. But when you come inside, you see a lot of modern structures and stuff like that. This is what we should be expecting in our educational system, where they should be, doing things that will meet the standard anywhere in the world, and not just to change the structure that they want to use to embezzle some funds. They should, politicians should really have interest of this nation at heart. They should think of the next generation and how to, when you get our educational system right, you see that all this japa thing we have will reduce. A nation that has decided not to take the educational sector serious is a nation that wants to go into extinction.
Senator, do you agree with Mr. Kenga here that said the curriculum change is actually the core of this whole thing, not the system change itself?
Well, I quite agree, because the curriculum has to be the kind that will work for Nigeria. He talked about the political side, and I bet you our democracy that we are importing from other nations is not working as it should be. And because the fundamentals are not what we all know about. So also the educational system. At what age are we starting the 12-4? At what age? So the curriculum is important. During our own days, we started with writing on the sand. That's what we started with. But today, we cannot say, go and write on the sand again. Now, the infrastructure to support the kind of educational system we want is not there. The software is not there. Who are the people writing? Go to our libraries today. There are ghost houses. So I think it's like we are modernizing, and at the same time, we are becoming less and less in terms of civilization. So you can, if you modernize, I think you should also embark on the civilization. So for me, I think it's good that they say it is a proposal. It's for people to work on. For me, that is not the years, whatever. What is the curriculum? What are you going to teach our children? What are the infrastructure for which our children will be taught on? Is it still, writing on exercise books, or are they going to be introduced, to computers and what? And if you are going to introduce to computers, people in the villages, how are they going to do that? You talk about AI, yes, that is the end thing today. So how is the curriculum of our 12, the proposed 12-4, is going to fit into our present infrastructure, into our present, learning? Today, go to all these streets. If you apply our roads in Abuja around 12 midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., you see small boys all over in shops, in restaurants, doing what? Where are their parents? What is the government doing about it? There don't seem to be anybody responsible or want to be responsible for these children, to become the leaders of tomorrow. So I totally, agree with him. It is not the hardware that is the issue. It is the software that will move the hardware forward. So I hope we are not into it again. We'll begin to now have conflict between, the federal government and then the subnational governments of states, of local government. Is there going to be a devolution of power? Whether you have 12 at a go, is this going to be, you are going to make a law in the National Assembly, say that, look, everybody in this country must have 12 years uninterrupted, education. And then how are we going to do? What is the infrastructure support? What is the funding for it? Who are the people? Even, training the trainers. Today there's no what we call teachers' colleges. We used to have them where you train teachers. Today we don't have.
Yeah.
Even so, there are so many things to be done. But I'm happy they say it is a proposal. We are going to look at it within the system of how we are going to operate, our democracy. It is related. Education is related to democracy. No doubt about it. So how are we going to make the software, the curriculum, to be adopted to our own system of education that we want to impact to our children in this country?
So you spoke about out-of-school children previously, and you just also shed some light on it again. How can the government, deal with this particular issue, with these out-of-school children? How can they, I don't know if enforce is the right word, but how can they make policy changes that would ensure that these children actually go to school and get an education? Because, for example, in my state, Akwa Ibom State, when Senator Godswill Akpabio was governor, there was a period where he ensured that every child in Akwa Ibom State was given access to free education. Meaning, if you see a child on the road, you can drag that child to any school and register the child to school to ensure there weren't children on the road. So, would something like that work in, a general sense across Nigeria, or are there other ways?
Well, thank you very much. I'm so happy with Governor Soludo. I think I listened to one of his interviews where he said, he has zero out-of-school children, whether it is political or whether it is the reality on the ground, I don't know yet. But he said he's tending towards that, because we have to look at, Nigeria in 2050. How is it going to be, a player in the world scene? Other economies, they are becoming elders, so they are becoming like lacking, what do you call it, manpower. So we should develop manpower for the world. So it is a difficult issue in the sense that look at the IDPs. So now how do you bring in these children? It has to be a Marshall Plan, where you will have what I call cooperative and consultative, relationship, between the federal government, state government, and local government. It's good that funding is now moving to local government directly. Let's wait and see how it will go. But it is not just the funding. If you have people like Ikenga, for example, or you have people like some of us, or you have people like, are going to move to the local governments, because the local government will become the most important, what do you call it, political structure that is going to be the foundation for education, politics, engineering, and what have you. So I think, it has to be holistic. Both the federal government, the state government, and the local government must consult, must cooperate, and then get the data. If you have somebody from Kano, I'm sorry to use Kano, but it's not that there are some, but they have a large population of people out of school. People from my state, Taraba too, there are people out of school. What are you going to do about them? How are you going to incorporate them? We had the Almajiri system. The Almajiri system has not worked because people say, okay, Almajiri certainly emanated from, first of all, you teach your children learning Quran at what age? Maybe from 3 years, so that by the time they are 6 years old, they are good enough to go into, our primary school system. So, but it has not worked. Is it corruption? Or what is it? Funding has become very, very, very fundamental. I'm happy with the coming of, Asiwaju. I learned that, the revenue, has a boost to the extent that, there's additional expenditure from additional revenue of about 5 trillion, Ikenga, that is coming in. That's why the president is pushing the budget, from 49 trillion to about 54 trillion. So that means there's a lot of income coming in. However, some of us look at it. If you have a deficit and you have additional income, it does not mean that you should increase your expenditure. You should use it to reduce your deficit. So there are so many things, the only way the system can work is if we have holistic relationship between the national and subnational governments.
Mr. Ikenga, one of the stated goals of this potential change, and I want to quote, is to reduce dropout rates and eliminate financial barriers. Now, in your opinion, do you think this policy would truly eliminate that, or are there deeper issues involved?
Well, Nigeria does not have deficiency of policies. What we have is the will to implement those policies. Most of the things, Senator, here, well, it's not an attack on your person, but members of your generation got complete free education from Chief Obafemi Awolowo, Chief M.I. Opala from Eastern Region. I think I know who was the Emir of
The
Northern
North,
Region,
Sir Ahmadu
Sir
Bello.
Ahmadu Bello.
Yeah.
It was absolutely free, and that is why you see, most of the people leading Nigeria today actually got free education. They studied through free education from primary to whatever level. And sometimes you see them having even grants to go to UK in those days, study, and then come back and take a job that was already waiting for them. But today, it's only, well, during this government of Asiwaju that we now have those in the university that have NEL fund. So funding becomes non-issue for any child who wants to be a graduate currently through NEL fund. Though the policy says after your graduation, after a few years, you will still pay back. So we are not lacking policies. What we are lacking is the political will to implement those policies. That is what we have seen over the years. I will want a situation where in Nigeria, the kind of wealth that God naturally bestowed on this country, we should have no business having children littered everywhere who are out of school. We shouldn't. You know, Nigeria is naturally blessed. Talk about solid mineral. From this Abuja down to the end of northern Nigeria is filled with different categories of solid mineral. This should, this is for us to be happy, to grow, and to live like any other developed nations of the world. If you go to the south, even some parts of the southeast, natural gas and crude oil. So do we really have to be suffering as we are? And again, we don't even lack the manpower. Nigeria has very intelligent people, very resourceful people, across tribe, across religion. But most times you see that corruption has really dealt with Nigeria. It has nothing to do with political party, because I used to tell people that most of the people you see in APC today, we are all in PDP, except just very few. Outside very few, all of them were all in PDP. And if anything should happen tomorrow and another political power bloc is formed, you will see everybody you see today in APC move to that new party. So it's not about political party. The corruption is the system. I was talking with a former senator from Anambra yesterday, and she was really feeling so bad that the system is endemically corrupt. Everybody is almost corrupt. And that is because we have refused to have a system that is working. In America, they are working because the systems are working. The institutions are there to checkmate everybody. Assuming they will have the kind of systems and institutions we have here, they will still be like us. So Nigeria our political leaders should be able to put in place systems and institutions that will permanently be working. For instance, I love what President Trump is doing. But people can call him names, people can say whatever against him, but you see this cutting free money that is coming from Africa, from him, US, from the American government, it is fantastic. So that by the time some of us many people will start dying of HIV and some other things, maybe the government will sit up. They will sit up and find solution from within. They can't just be feeding us, and most times when those monies come, it doesn't even get to the grassroots. It doesn't even get to the end user. Usually they will just share it in this Abuja and everything. So we need to find a system that is working, put in place institutions that are pragmatic so that so most of these our problems will be taken care of.
Interesting you made that example, because when that news came out, a lot of people were unaware that we're being funded for HIV research.
Yes, we are.
So that was a good example there. You also mentioned how we have an implementation problem in Nigeria. So, Senator, another major concern now has to do with the implementation, if this actually goes through eventually. Are there any challenges that you foresee in the restructuring of the education system?
Well, we will have everything, but, the challenges, are so enormous. First of all, I talked about, the federal structure that we have. Who is responsible for what? Is it going to be a policy? Is it going to be a law? And if you make a federal law, how is it going to be, brought over, by the states and the local governments? So certainly, implementation will be an issue. There will be a lot of challenges. He talked about, funding. Funding is one fundamental, but it is not just funding. It is managing the funds itself. We talked about students' loans, this NELCO that they are talking about. Is it free for all? How are you going to use it to encourage, smart students, are cropping up? If you say it is for everybody, for me, I'm totally opposed to that. It should be for people who are hardworking. Make it in such a way that, the first-class people are the people that are supported, and not just everybody come and collect money. They pay for school fees. People will only go and sleep. He says something, and it is quite true. My primary school was free. My secondary school was free. My university was free. I feel so bad, even at my age now, although, the youth are challenging the issue that, we have taken our own part, we are taking their own part, we will take the future, but there is no way you cannot do with experience. Experience is fun. We have seen it all, but the challenges are enormous. One, I say funding. Two, even curriculum development, even getting people interested in reading, in studies. You hardly have parents sitting down with their children these days, and then, either reading books, we have these gadgets now, people are, if you go to AI, you type, you get something. So students are not even, interested in tasking their brains. They say, I can easily get it in Google. So that is why, when they are writing their exam, you have short forms. And then I'm telling you, go and mark scripts and see. It's a disaster. Yes, we have a system. We have electronic system that is supposed to work. But let us be taught how to use this system for the benefit of improving, our brains. So there are enormous challenges, no doubt about it. Even the political side, state government that is running a different political party, federal that is running a different political party. What he said is true. Whether, PDP, whether it's APC, whether it is NMPP, the people are one and the same. It has no religious connotation. It has no tribal connotation. It is not. It is all the kind of people that we have. Do they want to develop this system? Do we want really develop this system? Trump is doing very, very well. He said, go back and develop your system. If we were docile as you are, you will not run to us now. So we too, we want to come to you and say, you have done well. So I think, the system, has to be, like I say, comprehensive, cooperative enough and consultative enough. Even the president said in the area of agriculture, when they went to see him, Christopher said, look, land is owned by the state government. Agriculture is based on land. So I'm only helping you. Also in the education system, the federal government should be helping the states, and they're helping the local government. So there are enormous challenges. But I hope and pray that, we will begin to realize it is not just funding, it is having interest. Even parents developing interest in teaching their children. I don't know how many parents teach their children these days. In those days, I taught my children when they come back from school, I come back from work, I sit down with them, look at this and this. There's hardly done that today. So these are also attitudinal challenges towards education. Go to our library in FCT. I visited the library, very often. I hardly find anybody sitting down to read. There are not even books there. So how are we going to have a system that works if we do not have interest in the kind of educational system that we have?
Mr. Ikenga, so looking at global education models, for example, now, how can Nigeria move towards a more competitive system? How can we advance our educational sector?
Like most distinguished senators said, AI can do a lot of things now. If you want to even to know the best models ever, just ask AI and he will give you. All we are, Nigeria should learn how to move with the world. The world is moving, and that is one of the things Trump is saying. Everybody should go back and develop your own country, you know. I maintain that the problem of Nigeria is the will to do the right thing. Corruption is eminent in this part of the world. Otherwise, it's not even a rocket science. For instance, I know I've seen videos of very young people, like my daughter is less than 2 years. She can operate my phone comfortably. A girl that is not even talking yet. Sometimes I don't know these children that they are born now, whether they were ancestors that are just coming back or something. But the thing is that the times have changed. I think I started using phone when I was in SS2 or thereabouts. My mother bought me the first phone. I used Nokia Touch and all that. But today, a child of less than 2 and stuff like that can comfortably operate phone. It is wrong when you begin to make them to be like us when we were growing. You should be able to, as much as there is need to moderate whatever the young people do on the internet and all that, because there is bound to be abuses, as we are currently seeing, people abusing the technology. But we can't shy away from the fact that that is the time we are in. You know, you can't be operating in yesterday when you are in today's world. So Nigeria should really be very, very intentional. Our leaders should be very intentional with embracing the modern time. They should spend money on research, not just theoretical, because sometimes you see, when you look at the budget, you see a lot of money being appropriated for research, and you begin to look at where those researches are done. Most of the research we did in school, our projects, go to some dustbins, you see the pile-up of projects and all that. Nobody makes use of it. So I think there is need for the government to be very, very intentional. These things are not too difficult now. In the modern time, in our own time, like most of the things Senator said, AI can do a whole lot. And most of the things, there is no need of people, there is need for one to task his brain. Very, very important. But at the same time, you'll be wasting a whole lot of time tasking your brain when others are asking AI questions and moving forward. By the time you realize yourself where you were tasking your brain, others were already in Jamaica and you are still in Nigeria. So there is, after all, AI and modern technologies are product of human brains too. Are you getting me? Those things are brought in to aid people. There is a place I saw in Lagos. I don't think, it's not in Lagos, in Ogun State. You know, Ogun State and Lagos, the robots were serving, they were, it was a bottling company. Robots were working there, robots working, not even human beings. Initially, we thought that these things are in the West and stuff like that. They are gradually creeping into Nigeria. And the person that brought the robot to work for him knew that he would spend less paying the robots than human beings. So what do we do is to, you know, when you people were growing, your parents would be telling you to work hard. I'm sure you also told your children to work hard. But today, what are we saying? Work smart. There's no, if you are just working hard without working smart, I mean, success may be far from you. So the government should be very, very intentional with embracing the time. Every society is a product of time and space. So this time and space, the government should embrace the time and then upgrade. It's just like your studio. Are you using the equipment you were using 10 years ago or 15 years ago? If you do that, nobody will be watching the IT. So the government should do the same.
That's a beautiful place to leave it. Thank you so much, Distinguished. Thank you, Mr. Ikenga. What I picked from this conversation was that, firstly, the curriculum needs to be changed. So it's the software, as you said, Senator, and not just the hardware, and that the government should be intentional in our educational system, and particularly with out-of-school children. So we'll leave that there, and hopefully as the news progresses, we'll get more information from them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
All right,
much.
that's it for the political segment of the weekend show. We have lots more coming up, so stay with us.